Tim O'Reilly from O'Reilly Media.
Thanks for coming. I'm not sure what I have to say here. Since Matthew and Indy did a great job of explaining the technology trends that I think are influencing you guys, and of course Jeff gave us a view of some counter trends, and I know what he and I are going to be talking about. But Matthew and Indy wanted to, have you hear from the horse's mouth a little bit where I think the world is going. Now, I'm going to start by introducing myself and getting a little bit more of a sense of how much you know about the technology world. How many of you have ever read an O'Reilly book? So how many of you are technologists? So a reasonable number of you. And that's where I got my start. And then I became a conference producer, starting with open source software. And by the way, we had a really interesting, somebody better plug in. If you don't have power for that, the problem is you're out of battery here. I have a power supply in my bag, which is right over there. But I can also talk without slides easily enough. All right, looks like we're going on that. About 5 years ago, I became known for this term, Web 2.0. We launched a conference called the Web 2.0. Now it's called the Web 2.0 Summit and Web 2.0 Expo. The real idea behind Web 2.0 was simply that after the dot-com bust, there was something that distinguished the companies that survived from the companies that had failed. And the key idea, as I explored it, was that the companies that had survived all were good at, in some way, harnessing collective intelligence. If you look at, say, Amazon, they sort of crowdsource reviews better than their competitors. eBay, clearly a marketplace of buyers and sellers. Craigslist, internet self-service. Google, probably the hardest to understand, but the most important to understand. Google harnesses the intelligence of every click on there. They basically were able to get their amazing ad engine going because they were able to predict which ads would actually work the best because they understood what people were going to do. A deep understanding of data. Anyway, I'm going to get back to my script here, and now that I've got it back, let me see if I can jump ahead. So there I am with Web 2.0. Back up a little bit here. I'm not just doing conferences, publishing. What we really try to do is watch what alpha geeks are doing. There's this wonderful quote from William Gibson, who said the future is here, it's just not evenly distributed. So I spend a lot of my time looking at what interesting people are doing and thinking about it. And so what I really did want to talk about here was this idea of what is Web 2.0, what is cloud computing, where are we going with data-driven applications, mobile, real-time, and to kind of put this whole Health 2.0 world in context. Now, as I said, Matthew and Indy did a fantastic job this morning of explaining it to you. I don't think I really need to do that. But what I want to get to are some of the deeper ideas here, and make sure that you really think about it. You guys remember this fabulous scene from The Princess Bride. The word in that case was inconceivable. But the future really is inconceivable. And one of the things that was so striking when I talked about Web 2.0 first was how long it has taken people to understand what I really meant. One of the things that I said in my What is Web 2.0 paper back in 2005 is that data is the intel inside of the next generation of computer applications. People did not quite understand what that means. And now, in the mobile world, it's starting to become clear. When you pull out your phone, and for example, you're using Google Maps with Street View, it's pretty clear that that data is not actually coming from your phone. In the old days, you had it locally, But here it is coming down from the cloud. And you think of all these cooperating data services that Google has put together. The phone is saying, hey, here's where I am, And Google's doing some calculations and on the fly, updating your route. They also, by the way, you can search along your route. They can do speech recognition so you can talk to it. They've got live traffic, they've got imagery. And all of this stuff is really becoming this wonderful integrated application space driven by data. And I started calling it back, before I called it Web 2.0, back in 2002, I did a conference called Building the Internet Operating System. And the fundamental idea that I've been really wrestling with for the last decade is this idea that we are, in fact, building an operating system for the Internet. And it's a data-driven operating system. And these things like people, places, things, prices, documents, images, and of course all the things that you see in healthcare are part of that operating system. And of course, then there's services, in the consumer world, there's things like search, payment, matching, and recognition. But of course, in health, you can imagine the kinds of services that will be required. At that conference, Building the Internet Operating System, Clay Shirky, who is now fairly famous, but at the time was relatively unknown, said something wonderful. He reminded all of us of the famous Thomas Watson story. Thomas Watson, of course, being the head of IBM, founder. He said he saw no need for more than 5 computers in the world. And everybody laughed, because of course they were thinking of the hundreds of millions, if not billions of computers. And then Clay delivered a devastating punchline. He said, "We now know that he overstated the number by 4. Because we are building a single global computer in which everything is connected.